ESPN. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973 ESPN. You can watch the show live here in the Matt Black Kia Studios on 973 ESPN. You can see the studio. You can see me wearing a red t-shirt because this is one of the rare occurrences you will see me wearing a color that is not the color black. Although I am wearing black slacks, so at least I'm keeping with the brand. Of course, we got a busy show tonight. Jason Blevins get into the Sixers. Kevin McCormick, and Paul Hudrick wrote a great article at 973ESPN.com breaking down guys who could be trade targets for the 76ers. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the Sixers starting their West Coast. You know, the Sixers have been on the East Coast almost the entire year. They haven't left the Eastern time zone, I don't think, all year. So this is very different than them going their first long-term road trip. So we'll get into that with Blevins coming up next. Well, you know, Bro's getting ready to leave the studio. You know, he's wearing the same color shirt as me. You know, it's a cooler shirt than mine because it's actually a college shirt. So, you know, I'm just wearing a random shirt that I got for free. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Again, the comment with your text as well. By the way, I will confirm Nick from Brigantine's text. Now, I think only the reason why Nick from Brigantine actually was able to predict this was because Nick from Brigantine is a longtime listener to the station. So we'll put Nick from Brigantine's comment up on the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter streams. Nick from Brigantine says, Josh took a day off yesterday. Odds were 2-1 you stopped in anyway. I bet yes you stopped in. Well, Nick, congratulations. You won some money because, I did stop into the station last night to take care of some things. So I was just off the rest of the day, take care of some personal items of business. So you got to get into some football as well here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN because watching the Super Bowl reminded me why I am more steadfast than ever that it's not a problem what the Eagles are doing right now. I understand everyone wants to say Tom Brady won his 7th ring. I understand everybody wants to say, wow, this guy's the GOAT. This guy's the greatest, blah, blah, blah. But did you notice how that game was won? Did you notice how that game went down? I certainly did. And you know what I saw in that game? I saw a game in which the quarterback wasn't the only one who won the game. Todd Bowles and the Bucs defense put Kansas City on notice. Todd Bowles outcoached Andy Reid. Todd Bowles embarrassed Eric Bieniemy. Todd Bowles' defense ran after an injured Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes' offensive line failed him at every level of the game. His team failed him. His coaches failed him. The Kansas City Chiefs failed the best quarterback in the NFL. So now Patrick Mahomes is Aaron Rodgers. He's a phenomenal talent. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's going to go down as one of the best talents to ever play the quarterback position. But with all of that being said, if your offensive line can't block and your receivers can't catch and your defense can't do their job, you are useless as a quarterback. So for the Philadelphia Eagles to be looking to move on from Carson Wentz, guess what? It makes sense. We get so enamored with the quarterback position. We act like the quarterback is the end-all, be-all so many times that we forget that, you know, some quarterbacks who have won Super Bowls? Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson. Come on. Really? Yeah, really. You know, Ben Roethlisberger had one of the worst quarterback ratings in Super Bowl history, and his team won the game. Teams win championships. There's a reason why when we talk about great organizations, we're not just talking about the coaches and the players. We're talking about the Steelers and their history, the Cowboys and their history. We're talking about the Giants and their history, the Patriots and their long-term dynasty, because the players come and go, but the organization is still there. Outside of Tom Brady, very rarely can a quarterback go somewhere else and win. When Peyton Manning won his second ring, he got that ring because he was carried by an elite defense. That defense was one of the best, probably one of the 10 best defenses in Super Bowl history. They carried a noodle-armed Peyton Manning to one more ring so he could walk off into the sunset. Outside of Manning and Brady, there's only two other quarterbacks who have taken two franchises to a Super Bowl, and both those quarterbacks couldn't get the job done with the second team. In fact, Craig Morton couldn't get a job with either team. Cowboys, Broncos, didn't win with either one. In fact, he lost to the Cowboys when he got the Broncos there. Kurt Warner had a great game in all of his Super Bowl games, but you know what? He only has one ring for a reason, because he's one man. And unless you are a super elite freak star like Tom Brady, you are not winning multiple championships with multiple organizations. Football is one of the hardest sports in the world to win at, but you're going to tell me that you're bent out of shape that the Eagles are trading Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz didn't even win the Super Bowl. Sure, he got the Eagles to 11 wins that year. He put them in a position so they could win home field advantage. But he did not win the Super Bowl. But I hear people and I read people on the internet who are telling me, you can't, it's ridiculous you're trading Wentz. They should have found a way to cap him. No, they should have found a way to cap the head coach. But because the owner of the Eagles is an individual who thinks he knows better than everybody else, that's why Doug Peterson isn't here. That's why Howie Roseman is here. So if you want to tell me that you are mad at the owner, I can jive with that. If you want to tell me that you're not thrilled with Howie Roseman, I'll listen to you. But if you're going to tell me that the Eagles are going to become the Cleveland Browns without Carson Wentz, you need to take a long walk and consider your life, because let me tell you something. Carson Wentz is not, I repeat, is not an elite quarterback. If people had the emotional attachment to Carson Wentz that they do now a couple of years ago, there wouldn't be a cult of Nick Foles out there who still loves Nick Foles, who still wants him to come back. People think Nick Foles is going to walk through that door in a Bears trade with Wentz and save the franchise. They conveniently forget that Jalen Hurts was drafted in the second round. That Howie Roseman has said they couldn't let him pass them by in the second round. The Eagles are telling you, without overtly telling you, that they think Jalen Hurts can be the franchise quarterback. But because people are all up in their feelings, people are all irrational and emotional about this stuff. That's why we are where we are. I saw a Super Bowl where the quarterback was very good, but the defense won them the game. Because defense wins championships, offense sells tickets, and quarterbacks are great for marketing. You don't need an elite quarterback to win a championship. You know how I know that? Because if he did, Patrick Mahomes would have won that game by himself. But he couldn't, because his offensive line didn't do their job. The coaches failed him. Why does anybody talk about the fact that Todd Bowles embarrassed Andy Reid? Andy Reid made no adjustments. That was the most vanilla game plan I have ever seen in a Super Bowl in at least 20 years. The last time I saw a game go like that was when the Falcons got embarrassed by the Broncos because the Falcons offense was Jamal Anderson, play action, and nothing else. But I'm supposed to believe that Patrick Mahomes is going to win more Super Bowls than Tom Brady? Not vibing. Not working with it. 609-403-0973 is text board to get on the conversation. 609-403-0973. Also, we are streaming the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Hello to everybody watching here live in the Matt Black Kia Studios on 97.3 ESPN. We will get to the Sixers coming up at about 9 minutes from now with Jason Blevins, our 97.3 ESPN.com Sixers beat reporter. He wrote, along with Paul Hudrick and Kevin McCormick, the top targets for the Sixers to trade for. We're going to get to him about that because they brought up a lot of good topics in that conversation. A lot of big names, a lot of interesting names, a lot of guys that I don't know if everyone's going to agree with. (609-403-0973) is the text board. I'm getting Dan from EHC's text up on the screen. But Dan, no offense, I am editing your text because the way you spelled that word, it came out not as the word you wanted it to be. It looked like a curse word. So I'm going to stick with the version I put up here. So Dan, I apologize for slightly editing this text. But Dan from EHT, you can see the text if you're watching the show right now. It says, what? The quarterback puts you in position every year after year. The search for a top 5 quarterback is the secret. If you don't have that, you may accidentally win one. Well, Dan from EHT, I have to disagree with you. Because think about all of the elite quarterbacks who have never won a Super Bowl. Who's a better quarterback, Phillip Rivers or Eli Manning? Who's a better quarterback, Matthew Stafford or Trent Dilfer? I'll go inverse. Who's a better quarterback, Brad Johnson or Donovan McNabb? The answer to this question is the guy who didn't win the ring in these scenarios is the better quarterback. Teams win championships, not individuals. We give an individual stat to the quarterback because we're lazy. We're lazy in our evaluation of quarterbacks because the majority of people don't spend the time to actually get down to the nitty-gritty when it comes to the quarterback position. People are enamored with the quarterback, but they're not fully understanding of the quarterback. Those are two different things. Don't forget that. So, listen, I don't think it's an accident that the 2000 Ravens won Super Bowl. That's one of the 3 best defenses of all time. It's them, it's the Bears, it's the Steel Curtain with the Steelers, it's the Raiders smash mouth defense of the 70s, it's the Cowboys defense under Jimmy Johnson. Those teams were elite defense. They didn't win championships by accident. It's not like Troy Aikman in every one of those games was going out there and just throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. No. Unless your name is Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Bart Starr, Joe Namath before he got injured. Unless you're one of those guys, you're not winning a championship. See, finding a top 5 quarterback is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Unless you're drafting a can't miss prospect, you're putting your hand over your eyes and you're throwing at a dartboard and you're praying and hoping that you get near the bullseye, and then you remove your hands from your eyes and you realize when you didn't hit the bullseye, you still got within a click or 2 of it. So then you're like, all right, well, at least I got a good one. Dan Marino was passed over for Todd Blackledge and Ken O'Brien. Brady was in the 6th round. Patrick Mahomes was behind Mitch Trubisky. We act like finding a quarterback is the key, but yet we forget that Dan Marino never won a ring. There's a reason why Stafford is going to the Rams, because teams win championships. There's only one sport on earth, team sport, where an individual changes everything. It's called the NBA. LeBron walks on to any team in the NBA, they're a championship contender. Basketball is different, folks. Speaking of basketball, we got to get to the Sixers conversation next. Jay Blevins, 973ESPN.com. Who are some targets for the Sixers to trade for? Also, the Sixers, their first big road trip of the year. All of that and more next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. The 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 97.3 ESPN. JoshHennig here, hanging out with you till 7 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Subin on 97.3 ESPN.
If you want the job, go take it. Go take it. Like, I need my quarterback to have that mentality. I feel like this is Jalen Hurts' team. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you have to let Carson Wentz go somewhere else.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Subin. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
JoshHennig here on 97.3 ESPN, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show live here on 97.3 ESPN, also the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Joining us live on the stream is Jason Blevins at Blevins NBA is where you can catch him on Twitter, all of his Sixers and NBA coverage. Also at 97.3 ESPN.com right now, a great piece by him, McCormick, and Hudrick, all about the Sixers trade targets. Jay, how you doing today?
I'm great. How about you, Josh?
Doing pretty good. First of all, a great job by you guys at breaking down the details of guys who would be available, because I think that a lot of times people throw out their names, they don't understand the logistics that go into it. And that's kind of where I want to start with.
Sure.
As you guys, and I don't want to give away all the names because I want people to actually go and read the article and the work that you guys put into it. But One of the things I noticed in there is that each one of you were trying to explain, listen, this is what goes into getting this. What is one thing as you guys went through this project that you took out of it? Maybe people need to understand that, you're not just getting a guy for nothing. You got to give up something to get a valuable asset in return.
Yeah, I think when people throw out trade ideas or they hear someone may be available, I think the first thing I would caution everyone to do is just check and see if there's a way to make that salary work. So, you have to have, for any team in the NBA that is over the salary cap, there's a soft cap and a hard cap. But any team that's over the sort of $80 million, I think, or $102 million salary cap, you have to, I think, be within 120% of salaries trading back and forth. So it's the first thing. It's not just a matter of, you're not at like the draft where you could just trade a first round pick and get a guy back and figure it out during free agency. So midseason trades, you have to make those salaries work. And that means there are really certain players you're going to have to include in any deal depending on the salary of the player you want to acquire. So the difference in acquiring let's go low end to high end, a guy like Lauri Markkanen, who is in the fourth year of a rookie contract, making like $6.8 million, you can match that a lot easier than you can with a Kyle Lowry who's making $30 million. Now, making the valuation work with draft picks and all of that is the next layer of that, right? Making it make sense for both sides. If a team is trending upward and they want to push their chips into the table, they're going to look to acquire a win now player. But if a team looks like what they've constructed really isn't working, they might be more willing to let go of a piece for future assets. So you have to look at, is a team trending up, trending down? Are they ready to cash out on the season and go for draft position? Or are they looking to improve their team in the middle of the season? So, making trade deals preseason versus midseason, you have to factor in a lot more elements in the middle of the season.
How much trade action do you think we're actually going to see this year in the NBA? Because I feel like there's so many unknowns right now with, what the second half is going to look like and, how that's going to be laid out. And, the All-Star game, that's a whole fiasco right now. So, how much do you think we're actually going to see when it comes to trades?
It's a great question because I think with the play-in where I think the 9th and 10th seeds get a chance to make it into the playoffs, you just have sort of an expanded set of teams that have a chance, which means teams are going to want to wait as long as possible to figure out if they're a playoff team or if they have a chance or not. You have a lot of uncertainty with this. You have a lot of uncertainty in the buyout market. This may mean, some players that you might trade for may wind up getting bought out later. So I think it's really tricky. I think the top teams, like the Nets, for example, are really banking on, because they have no assets left to include in a trade. they're banking on the buyout market. They're not going to be active. They've already made their big trade. The Sixers, though, can they wait for the buyout market, or do they know that the Nets have so many holes to fill in their bench that there's real minutes for a buyout candidate to go there and play a significant role, versus the Sixers, which are probably a deeper team, might not be as many minutes. So do the Sixers have to pull the trigger on a trade for a guy maybe in a normal year they'd hope to pick up, like they did with Ilyasova and Bellinelli a few years ago? That tier of player, those kind of guys might land with Brooklyn or a team that lacks depth. So I think it's going to be a really tricky trade deadline for a lot of teams.
I know one of the guys you guys mentioned a lot in the piece that you wrote over at 97.3 ESPN.com as a tradable asset was Ferguson. He's a guy we haven't seen a lot from this year. What is his real status and what makes him a viable trade piece?
Well, he makes $3.9 million and he's 22. So he helps make salaries work. He doesn't have a real role in this team. I think Matisse Thybulle would have to. He sort of plays the same role that Matisse Thybulle is playing, and Matisse is ahead of him. He's that defensive wing off the bench. So I think when you package, if you're looking to match a salary in the, say, $10 to $15 million range, you kind of have to include Mike Scott and Terrence Ferguson in any of those deals just to start before you really talk about net positive assets. But Ferguson's got a lot of starts in his career for the Thunder. He is only 22 and he can play defense. So I just think he's like, if you're going to say which two guys are almost certainly involved in any trade that the Sixers make, it's Mike Scott and Terrence Ferguson. But more Ferguson than Scott, because I think Doc Rivers really likes Mike Scott and what he can do for this team. And they have a real need at power forward. They're very thin at power forward right now.
Jason Blevins joining us here on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at JBlevinsNBA for all your Sixers NBA coverage. Check out the full article over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Blevins, Paul Hudrick, Kevin McCormick all give you 3 candidates the Sixers can trade for and the reasons why they can trade for those guys, because the reasons are actually more important than names. Don't just give the names. Read the reasons, okay, folks? 97.3 ESPN.com. Jay, let's get to the Sixers in this road trip starting tonight. This is the first time I think they've left the Eastern time zone, right? So this is a legit long road trip here.
Yeah, pretty much. I think Minnesota would be central, but this is their real road trip so far for the season, for sure. And completely different time zone. So, yep, it's gonna be interesting. And Sacramento is not to be taken lightly. They give the bigger Sixers team a lot of problems historically.
Yeah, that's fun. The funny thing, this schedule is not a bunch of pushovers. It's not like you're going out west and you're playing a bunch of Novas. You mentioned this isn't a pushover Kings team. You're looking at a schedule where you have the Suns on Saturday, you have Portland a couple nights from now. So, this is an opportunity for them to really, find out what they're really made of. The Jazz on Monday. I mean, these are all, the Blazers, Suns, and Jazz are playoff teams, and the Kings, they're going to give you some fight.
Yeah, I think the Kings, from a pure matchup standpoint, might be the worst matchup. They're not the best team of that group, but they're stylistically maybe the hardest matchup for the Sixers. And that always matters. Like the Suns, I think if you look at the matchups, you could argue that the Sixers match up pretty well with the Suns. And the Jazz, I think also. The Jazz just don't have the type of weapons that really hurt the Sixers. It's kind of the kind of team that the Sixers are built to beat. But the Kings and the Trailblazers, I think, are a different story. They're sort of that kryptonite for a big Sixers team.
when you think about this Sixers team as well, we know that, the struggles of Seth Curry, how that's impacted the rotations. We know that, Ben missed a couple of games because of that calf situation. How healthy are the Sixers going into this road trip?
I think they're as healthy as anyone else. I worry a little bit about Joel Embiid's verticality since that knee injury against Portland. I just don't think he's got the lift, and we'll see if that changes with a couple of days of rest. But when you have a sore knee, long plane flights are not good for that at all. So that is the one that worries me the most. But I think Ben Simmons looked totally fine the other night after coming back from the calf.
Do you think there's a possibility that maybe one of these games that maybe they give Joel Embiid a little extra rest, possibly as maybe like a little of opportunity to be like, hey, listen, we don't want you to overdo it?
I don't think so, because I think that the real grind is in the travel and the air travel. Doc Rivers does not seem to want to give those two. He definitely doesn't have them in bubble wrap. You saw in a game that was, I think that was pretty comfortable the other night, he threw them back in just to ensure that the door was shut on the win with 6 minutes left in like a 16, 17 point win, 16, 17 point game. So my sense is he's on the trip. He's probably playing.
Jason Blevins joining us here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at JBlevinsNBA for all your Sixers and NBA coverage. Tobias Harris spoke with Adrian Wojnarowski on the Woj Pod. It's very interesting things. One of the things about Tobias, though, is less about the player than about the person. I find him a fascinating individual because he's someone who speaks at a level of intelligence that I think gets overlooked. This is a guy is not just some random basketball player on the Sixers. He's a leader. He's a thoughtful individual. And I believe that that's part of the reason why he's a good player is because he's a thoughtful player.
Yeah, I think he prioritizes things like leadership, teamwork, camaraderie, chemistry, reading. He puts his money where his mouth is. He gives a ton of money to charities that are very targeted towards education. And he practices everything he preaches. I see it every day. I've seen it in the locker rooms, collecting the young players before the game to sort of get organized, get together, build a routine, which is one of the biggest challenges a young player has in the NBA, to really build a consistent routine throughout the day, throughout the season. So he practices what he preaches. I agree. It was a really good interview.
Yeah, we saw that as well in the bubble. Anybody who watched Matisse Thybulle's vlog, you saw how much Tobias was in that vlog. How much he, talked to him, looked after him, how involved Tobias is. I think that's what people overlook. People look at his contract and have these opinions about it, right? And it's like, to me, when you're paying an athlete $100 plus, almost $200 million, you're not just paying him to go out there and score points. You're paying for him to be a teammate and a leader and do those all other things. Because to me, teams don't win championships by just scoring a ton of points. Like, that's my concern with the Nets. Like, at some point, they're going to need somebody else to step up for them. With Tobias, he's a guy who's doing all the other things as well, and that's what's helping elevate this team, because Joel could be an MVP candidate, or he could be like Bradley Beal and score a ton of points, and the rest of his team stinks.
Yeah, and it just really doesn't matter. The team was entering into the luxury tax at that offseason anyway. They had the slot to give. Does it matter whether they paid him $25 million or $30 million per year? Does it matter whether he got 20 or 30? It wasn't. You weren't creating money you could spend somewhere else. It was a slot they could spend on that player, and at that point, it's the owner's money. There's no opportunity cost, right? There's no, we should have saved that money to do X with it. That just is not the situation. So I think the conversation about his contract is way overblown.
I agree 100%. Jay, before I let you go, folks can check out the article on 973ESPN.com. You, Hudrick, McCormick all gave your targets for guys Sixers can go after at Jay Blevins NBA on Twitter. Before I let you go, I got to make you pick one of these.
Okay.
Mary Wilson,
Yep.
Tammy Terrell, or Gladys Knight?
Oh, wow. I got to go Gladys Knight. I just have to go Gladys Knight. I think Midnight Train to Georgia is one of the greatest songs. She was the band leader. Mary Wilson, though, I was just listening this morning to the Supremes. It's very tough, but I have to go Gladys Knight.
See, I go Tammy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just a personal preference of mine. But part of it is also because of the fact that you had Marvin Gaye and David Ruffin both fighting over her. So it kind of adds a little extra spice to the whole situation when you.
I mean,
you know,
that's a good endorsement.
What's that?
That's a strong endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, when you got the Godfather and Marvin Gaye and then David Ruffin, my whole world ended about Tammy Terrell. It's like, all right, well, there's something to this woman here, you know.
All right, there you go. I was going pure music, but all right. Yep.
He's Jason Blevins. For more random conversations that have nothing to do with basketball, follow Jay because he'll raise your level of intellect there on Twitter at Jay Blevins NBA. Jason, appreciate the time tonight.
I appreciate you, Josh. See you soon.
JoshHennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Game Night, of course, being brought to you by Matt Black Kia. Matt Black Kia wants to get you approved today. They are located in the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. We'll be giving you my FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night a little bit later in the show. Plus, of course, we'll get back to your text at 609-403-0973. And if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you can comment on the stream. We'll pop your comment right up there on the screen, and we'll talk to you there as well here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, where you can get all of our Sixers, Flyers, and Eagles coverage at your fingertips 24/7. 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Simmons with a quick move down the lane and a left-hand jam. So Simmons very aggressive early on.
The Sixers are in Sacramento to face the Kings. Tonight, coverage begins at 10 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. More Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks again for Jason Blevins joining the show, getting on the conversation. I do enjoy the fact that Jay is more than just a basketball guy. He's got all kinds of layers to him. So it's always fun to, pick his brain a little bit about different things. He didn't know I was a Motown guy. I know now he's a Motown guy. We'll get to your comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as 609-403-0973. Yes, Danny HT and Paul on Facebook. We'll get to your comments in just a moment. Just want to remind all of you, of course, we got the FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night. We'll get to that in roughly about 8 minutes from now. But I do want to remind you, one thing this pandemic has taught us how important a business's website is in order for customers to find them. Are you a local business in need of more customers? Does your business need help getting found on Google? Does your website represent your business in a way that truly defines who you are and what you do? Well, according to a recent survey, 82% of small businesses find their website is an essential part of their business's success, and 54% report a boost in web traffic since the beginning of the pandemic. Well, here at Town Square Media, we want to help you. Let us show you how to get your business seen by more customers and get them coming through your door in person and virtually. Just go to townsquaresouthjersey.com. That's townsquaresouthjersey.com, or reach out to the radio station directly, and we will help you reach those business goals. To get to your comments here, we got Paul over there watching the show on Facebook. Chimes in and says, "Yo, Josh." What's up, Paul Westcott? He says, why isn't Wentz gone yet? Wentz isn't gone yet because making a trade in the NFL is not as easy as making a trade is in Madden. It is the simple answer, Paul. I think part of the reason why Wentz isn't gone yet is because the Eagles are trying to generate a bidding war. Now, I don't know if they're going to be successful at it, but I think they're trying to generate a little bit of a back and forth with these teams. People forget that there were a lot of teams in on the Stafford deal, and the Stafford deal, they didn't even take the quote unquote best offer. They took the offer that made the most sense for what they wanted. Those are two different things. There's a huge difference between being a team that turns around and says, I'm going to give you a good deal, and I'm going to give you the deal that is best for what you want. That's why Wentz hasn't been traded yet. I think that we get so focused on, the first round picks or who's coming in return or the money and all that kind of stuff, that we forget, whether it's, any of us. It's not just, you guys listening to me on the radio or watching the show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It's all of us. We forget sometimes that there's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It's like if you ever watch the movie Moneyball, it gives you a small glimpse of what happens in Major League Baseball. It's kind of like, all right, well, this can happen. And if it can happen like that, where you have multiple teams calling about the same guy, you got to work through things. And I think sometimes we forget that. Let's get a text in here at 609-403-0970. We'll give it to Joey D and Ventnor watching on Facebook. Dan and EHT chimes in and says, so I'm confused then. How are the Packers and the Saints in the playoffs every year? You have to make the tournament to win it. Well, the Packers and Saints are in the tournament every year for two different reasons. Aaron Rodgers is an elite quarterback. There's Tom Brady, who's in a category by himself, in my opinion. And then you have like Mahomes, Rodgers, Wilson. They're in a category together. So unless you have that tier of quarterback, you're not winning. You're not in a position, as you put it, to win a championship. The reason why the Saints are in the playoffs recently is because the Saints had to make a lot of changes on their roster. People forget that they went 7-9 for a bunch of years. They missed the postseason altogether with Drew Brees because their defense was garbage. Their defense couldn't stop you, me, and a bag of biscuits. All right. They couldn't do anything. So when you think about the Saints, we only focus on the most recent situation with the Saints. Let's pull up their franchise index here. Let's pull up a little bit of New Orleans Saints history under Sean Payton. Sean Payton, we all love him. How many years did he miss the playoffs? 1, 2, 3. He missed the playoffs 3 years in a row and 7-9. Since they won a Super Bowl, they have missed the playoffs a total of 4 years. And each of those years, they went 7-9. They've been to one conference game since winning the Super Bowl. Otherwise, they lose in either the wild card or the divisional round. So, but you have Drew Brees, right? Well, here's the thing, Dan. You could have the quarterback. It doesn't mean it's going to matter if you don't have the players around him. We forget that, listen, the Saints didn't win without a good defense. They finally got a good defense. They got back to the playoffs. Dan Marino got the one Super Bowl. He never went back because Don Shula stuck around too long. He didn't put the right pieces around him. They got stubborn in their offense, and they put too much on Marino's shoulders. And despite the fact that he had a Hall of Fame elite career, the Dolphins were not a well-built football team. And by the time Jimmy Johnson got there, Marino wasn't the same Marino anymore. So you can have the quarterback all you want. It just doesn't work out. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Couple more messages in here. We'll get back to the text board in just a bit. 609-403-0973. Joey D. and Ventnor chimes in, watching on Facebook at 973 ESPN. Josh, would you take Trubisky for Wentz and draft picks? Absolutely not. Also, that deal can't happen because Trubisky's a free agent. I think Trubisky is a bust. I think that the best he will ever be is a Alex Smith light type quarterback. I don't think he has the ability to be Wentz's potential when he came out of college was way different than Trubisky. Trubisky was drafted on purely potential. He had 1 year starting in college, and it's taken him 3 years in the NFL to just figure out how to play quarterback. And even then, he's not an elite quarterback. Wentz came from a pro-style offense. He came to the NFL, and he already showed you that he can be a Pro Bowl level player. I have no interest in Trubisky. Trubisky's a waste of my time, your time, everybody's time. If Trubisky came here, you think people hated McNabb? Trubisky makes throws that make you want to wish for McNabb to come back. Trubisky makes throws at times that would make Eagle fans lose their mind. You think people are texting and messaging and tweeting and commenting and social media posting now? If you brought Trubisky to Philadelphia, people would lose their doggone minds. Draft picks, I'm indifferent about. To me, the draft is 70% talent evaluation and 30% luck. You got to be able to evaluate a talent, and then you got to have the luck to actually for it to work out. Maybe not even 70-30. Maybe it's like 60-40. Because how many players get drafted and a team's like, I got to draft this player because he fell to me? People talk about DK Metcalf. Every team in the NFL passed on him, not once, but twice. The Seahawks passed on him twice before they drafted him. You got to be a little lucky sometimes. It's not just being a good talent evaluator. So draft picks, I'm conflicted about that. I think that people sometimes look at the draft picks and they overthink it sometimes. I appreciate the question, though, Joey, because I think that, listen, we're all spitballing ideas out there, like this texter who chimed in with a 3-team trade at 609-403-0973. I'll post this up on the video feed for all of you out there watching the show because this trade's kind of funny. Wrong button. There we go. Text board, 3-team trade. Bears get Wentz. Eagles get Watson and Foles. Texans get Jalen Hurts. 1 first-round pick, 1 third-round pick from the Eagles, 1 first round, 1 second round for the Bears. What do you think the Texans are making that deal? I'll just tell you that. I think that I think Houston wants to fleece somebody. I think they look at the Stafford deal and they want the Stafford deal on steroids. I think that's what it's taking to get Watson. I would love to see Deshaun Watson. I'm a huge Deshaun Watson guy. That's my guy right now in the NFL. I think he's incredible. I love Deshaun Watson. I think the Bears would make the deal because they get Wentz. And I think that the Eagles would make the deal because they could get Watson. No way the Texans are making that deal. See, that's the problem. I think the Texans want more than, 2 first-round picks, a third, a second, and Hurts. They want a more high-profile player than that. I think they're looking for, oh my goodness, probably something closer to, let me think about that for a second. They're looking for something a little bit more juice than that, in my opinion. I think the Texans won't take that deal. But it's a good idea. I appreciate the creativity. It's just not going to happen. All right, don't forget my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Basketball is in full swing. You know what it means. Time to fire up the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Perfect time to get FanDuel Sportsbook a chance. Of course, sportsbook.fanduel.com. Use my promo code HENNIG, HENNIG, when you sign up to get same game parlay insurance. What's the game of the night? Boston and the Jazz, two teams that play defense. The over-under is 219. I'm going with the under. I think these are two of the better defensive teams in the league. I think this is going to be a duel between Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum. Take the under in the Celtics and the Jazz. You can get same-game parlay. You can make multiple bets on one game at FanDuel.sportsbook, sportsbook.fanduel.com, and the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Subin on 97.3 ESPN.
Coming up Wednesday, we're full steam ahead on an off-season locomotive. We'll answer each team's most pressing questions. Do we have our franchise quarterback? And what's the solution? Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, Wednesday, 6 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.